would be Rick Beltran. Rick, if you would stand. Spartanburg, GOP, and Rick, how many years was that?
10 years.
10 years of service, and he continues to pass his graciousness forward and help those of us that have come behind. Our second one I'd like to recognize, who may not be here yet, is Hope Walker. She's on her way coming from Charleston. She may be talking travel, but and she is a candidate for South Carolina Senate seat, District 12, and that's public. Third, I'm very honored to have Kathy Beeler. Kathy Beeler has some credentials. South Carolina Federation and former president of Palmetto House, Republican woman, and a very wonderful friend in person. Thank you, Kathy. Next is Honda Caldwell, another lovely member. She is a judge, and she is a delight to work with. And we're so honored to have you here tonight, Honda. Thank you. Is Serena Edgerton in the house? No. Okay, she's not. Yeah, okay, thank you. Serena is from the House, South Carolina House. This is her first year. And next, he came in the neck, just in the nick of time. I'm trying to think where he's seated. Where is our Republican? There he is, Sheriff-elect, and his lovely wife that are here tonight. We are so honored to have you. He was elected and won by a big margin, and we are waiting until he can be sworn in November to make it official. But thank you for giving up your time here about you coming tonight. At this time, I would like to turn it over to our Vice President and the kind of lady that does our invocation. Sorry. Right Tiller, who is President, Chairman of Spartanburg County GOP. And I do that, I'm sorry.
Thank you. I love you.
Well, that's fine. Thank you for taking the time. At this time, have I left anybody out? All of you dignitaries. Oh, Callie Finch. Yes. Callie Finch works in Congressman Williamson's office. Callie, if you would stand so you could be recognized. Thank you, both of you, for being here. At this time, Julia Wilson, louder. Julia Wilson is our invocation.
We welcome everybody. Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for allowing us to gather here tonight. We pray, Father, for our country, the United States of America, and our President Donald J. Trump. We thank you for allowing us to be part of the Spartanburg County Republican women and the conservatism we stand for. Give us strength and give us courage to speak out proudly about our values we stand for in our country, and to uphold each other. Be with our military, veterans. Let this special event be a shining star and a pathway of light for each and every one of us. Forgive us, Father, of our sins, and we thank you for the many blessings. Be with our speaker tonight as she shares her values and plans to make our state the best in the nation. Help us all stand tall in our nation. Amen.
Okay, at this time on the agenda, I would like to call on the Honorable And Gene has a few words he wanted to say before he begins the pledge.
We have a flag here. What I did was I brought the flag from 1812. So when Prince got you of the national anthem, which is the always start out with, this was the flag that they saw. So the rock, the little birthing there, flag is still there. This was the flag that they saw. Anybody notice anything different about this flag? It's 15. They thought, oh, I know what we'll do. We'll get a new star, because they got 15 stars, and we'll add a new stripe for every state. And they said, that's wonderful. And then somebody asked right after this, by the way, because they were getting ready to add 2 more states. They said, well, what if one day, I don't know, we have 100 states? They said, well, we'll have 100 stripes. Well, they'll be so microscopically narrow, it'll be red, white, from about 20 feet, it'll look pink, pink flag. So they said, how about going back to the 13 original stripe? That's a good idea. So that's what they did, and as they used to say, that is the rest of the story. Both of these flags will all listen up, and then we'll do the national anthem. Salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose lights and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streamed, and the rockets were the bombs were singing in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
You're welcome.
I will add, anybody, I've got 12 different flags to go off, the ones that have changed over the years. And if I want to do something for a church, I actually have flags for all the sides.
And this time I am delighted to introduce our treasurer, Jean Jensen, who will be able to lead us in the Republican Creed. And for those of you who haven't noticed it on the program, it is in the right in the bluest around the circle in the Republican program. So you can follow along. Read.
Okay. I do not choose to be a common man. It is my right to be uncommon. If I can seek opportunity, not security, I want to take the calculated risk to dream and to build, to fail and to succeed. I refuse to barter and settle for dough. I prefer the challenges of life to guaranteed security, the thrill of fulfillment to the stay on calm of utopia. I will not trade freedom of beneficence nor my dignity for a handout. I will never cower before any master, save my God. It is my heritage to stand erect, proud, and unafraid, to think and to act for myself, enjoy the benefit of my creations, to face the whole world boldly and say, I am a free American.
Thank you, Jean. This time, I'm going to give everybody a turn to eat, and I will ask our speakerwoman. She is ready to be introduced. By everybody, would like to go ahead and devour the food. you eating. Enjoy your dinner. But we are very honored at this time for me to introduce, I'll give you a little bit of information about Nancy Mace. There is so much to know, so much to love and to be proud of. And it is with great honor that I'll read you the bio that I was given. But she deserves accolades. Nancy Mace. Nancy comes from a military family as the daughter of a retired Army general and school teacher. She started working at the Waffle House after dropping out of high school and became the first woman to graduate from the Citadel Military College in South Carolina 26 years ago. And she graduated Nancy built a business from the ground up, ran for office when others wouldn't, and made history again as the first Republican woman elected to Congress from South Carolina. Woo! She fights for what's right, balanced budgets, low to no taxes, supporting illegals, a government who answers to the people, and the rights of women and girls. She is not a fan of the trans. Faith guides her, facts drive her, and she never backs down. Nancy Mace holds the line. And before I turn it over to you, I would like to say, Nancy and I do share one thing in common, which makes me proud. That I graduated from the University of Georgia. After she graduated from the Citadel, as the first woman, she went on to the University of Georgia to get a degree in journalism. If you haven't read her book, it's something worth reading. She is very accomplished, a beautiful writer. So take the time if you want to know a little bit about this wonderful lady and this wonderful governor of our state. I am so honored to introduce to you Nancy Mace.
So I don't go over. What I want to do is speak for about half an hour, take a couple of questions for about 15 minutes, and then we'll do a photo line. I will stay here as long as I need to. I will shake every hand, kiss every baby, and answer every question. But I'm here. And thank you, Miss Patty, for the invitation. I want to recognize Connor. Connor, where are you? There it is. Connor's mother drove. Connor's too young to drive, he's 12. But Connor's mother drove him to Connor 3 hours to be here up in Spartanburg. This is the fourth event now that you've attended. He was out at lunch. He was in Rock Hill. He's been in Myrtle Beach. Now he's in the upstate. He is traveling the state with Team Mace. Thank you, Connor. It's good to see you. I've met some really wonderful people. We have a tech pro and Jacob over here. Everyone's asked. We've got a microphone. He's from Alpharetta. He builds drones. I don't know how he man that young could be building drones and be in the tech space. That's pretty cool. So thanks for coming over here from Georgia to be here. I met a woman named Natalie tonight in the back who's recovering from a horrific accident, and she's been through so much. Natalie, I'm going to ask everybody to pray for you tonight. Thank you for sharing your very deeply personal story. We all had our challenges, and I'll talk about a few of mine tonight too, but thank you for making the effort to be here, and we are going to be praying for your recovery. You're doing fantastic, quite frankly, everything you've been through. And thank you for your advocacy too. She's advocating for others who've been in similar accidents that don't have a voice. You'll be surprised at what insurance companies will do, or in many cases not do, to help victims who've almost died in some of these car accidents. Who is sleeping better knowing that Donald Trump is in the White House. You know, they impeached him. They raided his home. They indicted him. They arrested him. They even tried to kill him. They shot him. And there's only one individual, one person that carried Trump, and that is God himself. The grace of God carried Donald Trump on a day when they tried to kill him. And it wasn't the first time, and it will not be the last time. And I think he is a gift from God, what he is doing to lead our country out of the precipice where we have been the last 4 years. And quite frankly, when America is strong, the world is strong. And I think you're going to see a greater period of peace and an end to endless wars because Donald Trump is in the White House. And he has shown us, and by the grace of God, we know through him that we are all daughters and sons of the King. And that we follow him, we believe in him, that he will take care of us, and he is taking care of our country right now. And Donald Trump is someone who holds the line. I mean, we saw one of the first things that he did as president was sign an executive order to keep biological men, I call them mentally ill men, out of women's sports. He did that. And I know my endorsement for president last year in the presidential primary here in South Carolina, as a survivor, I knew that he was the only one that would be able to protect us, to protect women. And he's made good on all of his promises, not just women. Have y'all seen how many people he has deported since becoming president? All the illegal immigrants. We're now putting business owners who are hiring illegal labor in jail in states who are breaking the laws. I sure would like to bring that to South Carolina if I were governor, quite frankly. But he's held the line against all of these things, and he's a great role model. We have a huge opportunity, massive opportunity, next year, in 2026, to bring an America First governor, or actually governors, plural. People who will put our country first, put the people first. We're seeing that with Byron Donalds in Florida. We have Vivek Ramaswamy in Ohio. Marsha Blackburn just threw her hat in for governor in Tennessee. We have the coach, Turbeville in Alabama. We have maybe John James in Michigan. We have maybe Elise Stefanik in New York. We have a massive opportunity because we know that we are not only conservatives, but we are the party of common sense. We are now the party of normal. And thank goodness Democrats are not normal right now because their polls are plummeting. And the sooner they get to normal, the sooner we're going to have a race on our hands. But I think we have a huge opportunity to keep the Senate, keep the House, and by gosh, get some really, truly good conservatives in the governor's seat in multiple states across the country. And that is why I decided to run for governor. Our state is ready. I'm ready. I want to take what I have learned over the last 5 years in Congress and talk about some of those accomplishments and those results. I'm tired of sitting on the sidelines. I just gotten so fed up. I mean, I came into Congress, I'm going to be nice to everyone. I'm going to give everyone the benefit of the doubt. And about 2 years in, I just saw, if you acted one way, the press would cover you a certain way. And then if you told the truth, you never got covered, or they would just make stuff up about you, smear you, defame you, libel, slander, you name it. I have seen it all. I've been in front of a seat to it, and I am tired. I am sick and tired of it. And all I want is a leader who will tell the truth. Just like Donald J. Trump. He is the number one truth teller in the country right now. But before I get into my plans for South Carolina, I want to tell you a little bit about myself. 26 years ago, I became the first woman to graduate from the Citadel, the military college of South Carolina. The college campus where we don't burn the American flag, we salute it. That's what we do. But before I got to the Citadel, I struggled a little bit. My story is, I've been on the struggle bus quite a bit over the years. And until I found my faith 6 years ago, I I mean, it's massive struggle. So at 1995, I dropped out of high school. And my father, he's a retired Army general. He has 3 tours of combat, 2 in Vietnam, 1 in 1965, the coup d'etat in the Dominican Republic. He's been shot out so many times. He's got shrapnel in his body still, suffers from Agent Orange. Has earned every commendation in the U.S. Army except for the Medal of Honor, for which he was nominated for and got the Distinguished Service Cross from a firefight from the 4th of December to 6th of December 1968 in Dong Zai. He's an American hero. And my mom's a retired school teacher. We have school teachers in the room, anybody? There we go, Patty. There we go. Quite a few of you. We gotta get the pay up for school teachers. We'll talk about that in a minute. But my mom, retired school teacher, and my father, the retired Army general, said if you're gonna stop going to school, you have to start going to work. So I took a job at a fine dining establishment. Some of you may know as the Waffle House. Anyone know the Waffle House? It's a pretty conservative crowd. Keep your hand up if you've been there after midnight. Wow, I'm impressed. I was recently in my pajamas traveling 12 hours through the night in a Waffle House, and you'd think the X and the left on Twitter was going to lose their minds. They were conservative pajamas, they were cute pig hearts. But Denny's was a little too highbrow, but I learned the value of hard work at the Waffle House. You know, I would stand on a piece of duct tape about a foot wide, and I would yell at the cooks in the back how my customers wanted their hash browns. Smothered, covered, chunked. Or the bonnet, too. Oh gosh, thank God we didn't have iPhones back then. But I learned the value of hard work, and I learned that maybe I made a huge mistake. I should not have dropped out of school. So I took a couple college classes at Triton Technical College in North Charleston on Rivers Avenue. And I earned my high school diploma a year early at the age of 17. I thought, what am I going to do with myself? What am I going to do when I grow up? And that was in 1995. In 1996 is when the Citadel decided that they would let women in. And I'm from Goose Creek. Goose Creek's about 19 miles from the campus of the Citadel. And I asked my father to help me bring my luggage and my belongings into my dorm room of the barracks, Paget Thomas Barracks, number 2 barracks at the Citadel, in August of 1996. You think he helped me? No. He wouldn't even give me a hug or tell me he loved me when he dropped me off at school. You know what his last words were to me? They were, don't go home if you want to quit. Just put on your shoes and start walking. And I knew then that, you know, I dropped out of school, I had a chip on my shoulder, I had survived a horrific assault early in my life, and I said, I have something to prove to myself, not anybody else, nobody in the press. I had something to prove to my father, I had something to prove to my mother, that I could, and to my family, that I could go to a place, I could be challenged, that I could face adversity, face any obstacle you threw my way, and I wouldn't give up. And I wouldn't care what other people thought of me. No matter the death threats, no matter the harassment, I never gave up. And there are 2 things that I learned at the Citadel. I learned about having courage, and I learned that sometimes doing the right thing means doing the hard thing. Sometimes doing the right thing means you don't have any friends. I can tell you Washington is a very lonely place. I said, if you want a friend, get a dog. And I have a 6-pound Havanese. Her name is Liberty. She's upset she couldn't be here tonight. She'd be licking all of your plates. And she loves freedom, the Constitution, and bacon. And she's going to miss those walks in D.C. But, you know, I learned those values. And I didn't know where it would be today because my life has just been this zigzag. I had my ups, I had my downs. I started a company. I stopped it. I ran for office. The first time I ran, I lost. Then I was in the state house, and that's where I found my passion. And in 2019, in May of 2019, I found myself in a church for the first time in a really long time. I walked into Seacoast Church on Long Point Road in Mount Pleasant, and it was a Saturday night, and Josh Surratt was preaching on Jeremiah 6:16. Jeremiah 6:16, and when I walked into the church, I didn't spontaneously combust. I mean, I thought for real I'd probably light myself on fire, but that didn't happen. But church is there for the sinner, it's not there for the saint. Church is the place to have people saved. And that night, I was going through a hard time. Not my first divorce, it was my second. And I was like, what have I done? Why is this happening? So disappointed with myself. And my daughter was in the Saturday night Sunday school, whatever they call that, the kids' post. And my son, who's 12 years old at the time, he's now in college, by the way. It was at USC on campus last night. Terrifying. There we go. But my son put his arm around me, he's 12, and he said, Mommy, I love you. It's going to be okay. We are going to be okay. And I had tears just bawling my eyes out. And I said, I'm going to do better. I'm going to make something of myself, and I'm going to get my family through this. I didn't know if we would have a home. I didn't know if we were going to be able to keep it. I didn't know if I could afford the mortgage. But that was the moment that God saved my life. And I have learned that when you listen to His Word, and you share His Word and His wisdom with others as you learn, everybody learns. We share our faith, become more of a Christian community, more of a Christian state, more of a Christian nation. And what it has done to change my life, I can't even explain it. But the path that I have been on has been the righteous one. And in Jeremiah 6:16, it says that sometimes we get to a crossroads. And it's about choosing the right path and then walking in it. And I recognized for the first time in my life 6 years ago, I was 41, that I wasn't doing that. And when you do that, you are saved by the grace of God. I am the daughter of the King. And I will listen to Him. And I will preach His word, because my pastor jokes with me. He says, I'm the woman at the well. You guys know that story? I mean, she's so broken, so completely broken, and needs to be saved, and Jesus is the first one to tell her He's the Savior. And it changes her life, and she spreads the word of Christ through her story. So my story is, I am a totally broken and imperfect vessel. But I feel like the imperfect are the best, most perfect vessels sometimes to spread that word and spread that message. And so that's where I come from. That's why I'm so passionate. That's why I have no friends. That's why I really don't care about exposing the truth, the crime, the corruption, the stuff that goes on in the shadows, the people who operate in the dark. I'm bringing a flashlight. And when I'm governor, I'm going to shine a light on. I've already been doing it. And to show you how I've held the line for the last couple of years in Congress, just ask George Stephanopoulos. He learned a $15 million lesson in the truth, because Trump won a $15 million defamation suit against him in the interview that I did, standing up for Donald Trump as a woman, as a survivor, and pushing back on all of the lies being told by George Stephanopoulos. Now, I haven't told the president this. This is my speech joke, the one you're going to hear tonight. But I don't want a commission. That'd be nice and really nice. I'm one of the poorest members of Congress. I don't trade stocks. I will probably be the poorest governor in South Carolina, which is great. But where was I going with that? George Stephanopoulos. But all I want is when Trump is supposed to build the presidential library, $15 million for the presidential library. I want a commission. I just want my name and a plaque on top of in front of the women's bathroom. That's it. That is all I want. I just want my name in front of a women's bathroom, and that'll be my legacy for what I've done to fight for women and girls. Because it took 100 years from 1920 to 2020 to get elected as the first Republican woman elected to Congress in the state of South Carolina. It took us 100 years to get a Republican woman elected. We've got to do more of it. You guys have Sherry Biggs up here. She's terrific, great conservative from Anderson. But if you need to know how I held the line, when Donald Trump was shot, we dragged in the director of the Secret Service into the Oversight Committee. She decided that she wanted to lie that day to the American people, that she didn't want to tell the truth, that she didn't want to take responsibility. She just even denied getting a letter from our committee. She had no idea. She hadn't seen it or read it. And someone had filed an article, or excuse me, resolution, articles of impeachment, a resolution to do that, and I thought, that's nice. But it didn't force a vote. So a few hours later, I get out of the oversight hearing, I march down to the chamber, to the halls of Congress, to the Capitol, and I filed what's called a privileged resolution. Privileged resolution means it requires a vote within 48 hours. I filed a privileged resolution. Any guess how many hours it took for her to resign? About 12. And she's gone. Last week, I held the line against what I thought was a frivolous arrest. There was a guy in Beaufort County, an elderly man about 78 years old. Probably one of the most hated men in Beaufort County. Okay, he's one of those people that shows up at every event. He antagonizes people, a protester, which I have some people who protested me in Greenville today, and they're here tonight, and that's okay. They're being very well behaved. They're going to ask their questions and everything. And I've never had someone arrested in my events just for showing up. I let those who disagree with me in the room. I don't mind the colloquy. I don't mind the debate, but they had this guy arrested at an event for the AG just for showing up. He was a guest. He was sentenced to 15 days in jail. And you can disagree with the guy, you can not like the person, you can loathe the person, but you don't throw them in jail for 15 days just because you don't like them. I don't like them. I mean, I let him show up my events, I give him the microphone for 1 minute, and I'll answer the questions, we'll do it. But that's his right, that's the freedom of the Constitution, that's freedom of speech, that is his right to not be liked and to show up. And he spent 2 days in jail. So I put it out on social media, and hours later, he was let free. Friday afternoon, they let Skip Hoagland out of the Beaufort County jail because of a post on X. And we're not even governor yet. We had a couple of universities this year that I found out were part of that gender bender ideology. Clemson University, a couple months ago I found out, someone leaked it to us, I think on Facebook, Lisa, leaked to us a document that showed a form on Clemson's website. It was 15 genders. Anyone want to guess which genders were missing? Male and female. So I called the school very nicely and I left a message and I posted it on X. 3 hours later, do you know what happened to that form? It came down. USC. My oldest was applying to college. Admitted to the Gubernatorial application. Anyone want to guess how many genders were on that form? 13. But it did include male and female, okay? One was thinking. I think one was thinking. It was weird. I don't know what thinking means. I don't know what that means. It's not science. So I do a post about it on X. 48 hours later, guess what happens to the form? It comes down. Coastal Carolina, a few months ago, I learned that they were promoting cross-dressing on their college website, which has nothing to do with getting a degree to get you a good job, to be a productive member of South Carolina's economy. Nothing to do with it. You know what I do? I go on X, I post the page, and what happens a day later? It comes down. And sometimes it just takes someone who has the courage, who understands that doing the right thing is sometimes the hard thing. I didn't want to call out our state-funded colleges and universities. I got a kid at one of those schools. Didn't want to. But it was the right thing to do. And we got them to change their policies, and we're not even governor yet. So imagine what we can do. Last year, I helped get fired a sanctuary sheriff. We have banned sanctuary policies in our state. But for the last 4 years, we had a sanctuary sheriff in a blue county who was getting away with letting out illegals who were rapists, illegals who were murderers, illegals who were pedophiles, and letting them back on the streets of South Carolina. When a blue county in Charleston County that Kamala Harris won by 11 points, the advocacy that we did to shine a light on the sanctuary sheriff when no other statewide elected official would, got her unelected. She lost by 1 point. And the new sheriff in town started working with ICE on day 1. South Carolina did that. The people did that. We have lawlessness in our streets, not just the crimes that I have spoken out very publicly that some people disagree with me about speaking out about, but when I went through my trauma 2 years ago, all these victims have come forward. And I have learned that criminals are treated like victims in our state, and victims are treated like criminals. Has anyone heard of Scott Spivey? If anyone read, I would encourage you to Google Scott Spivey's case. It's been covered extensively by Valerie Bauerlein at the Wall Street Journal. She covered the Murdoch murders. And this guy was chased 9 miles down the road. He was shot at about 17 times from behind and died of a bullet in the back, not being investigated for murder. We've got solicitors that I've learned that are leaking evidence in cases that won't prosecute cases. Well, when I'm governor, we're going to defund all those solicitors that refuse to prosecute crimes. Look, you have to look no further than Sumter County. I get a call from Republican leadership in the state legislature about a month ago, talking about and complaining about the prosecutions in Sumter County. About a month ago, the solicitor prosecuted 1 case in 1 week. It was a DUI case, serious. 1 case though. Any guesses how many murder cases are on the docket in Sumter County and not being prosecuted? 60. 60. You go down to the coast in Charleston County. 353, last I checked, last week. 353 murder cases in Charleston County, or cases of attempted murder, not being prosecuted. And it spans about 8 years. We have pedophiles that aren't being prosecuted. Has anyone heard the name Donald Resch? I would encourage you to Google it. Down along the coast, he was arrested with 1,900 images of children as young as 3. There were animals. Connors and I won't say what happened, but there were animals. Any guesses on how many minutes it took for them to do the plea deal for this pedophile case? Minutes. Anyone want to guess? 15 minutes. He was facing 60 years in prison. Do you want to guess how many days he served in jail? I shouldn't say it in plural because it was 1. Jacob's right. 1 day in jail. Last week, Skip Hoagland, for trespassing, served 2 days. And yet we have pedophiles, convicted pedophiles in our state that are serving 1 day in jail. So when I'm governor, we have Donald Trump as the law and order president. Nancy Mace is going to be the law and order governor. So I have less than 3 minutes before my time wraps up, and I want to go into some policies, and then we'll go into some questions. People know what I'm capable of doing in the news. They want to know what my plans are. Well, when I talk to voters, one of the top concerns they have is the cost of living, is inflation, and also the tax burden. I'm going to admit, I've been looking at places in the upstate. I can't even, a 2-bedroom condo downtown Greenville, the minimum is like $1.2 million. I'm sorry, what? We are the 10th fastest growing state. And so we have all these wealthy people, entrepreneurs, that are bringing all their tax dollars here. That's great. But everything is so much more expensive, and we're just not used to it. We're the 10th fastest growing state. We have I think, 10th fastest growing county in the country is Horry County. My congressional district that I represent right now is the 10th fastest growing congressional district in the nation out of 435. We've had this massive growth. Spartanburg's a suburb of Charlotte. Greenville's a suburb of Atlanta. They're all coming here. California, New York, and I think Florida's full. So I think you're going to see a northern migration to South Carolina. You guys have better weather than the coast. It's not as much better, not as hot up here. But that's a huge problem. The inflation and cost of living, affordable housing, those kinds of things. So my first plan to address those issues is to take our tax burden down for those that are paying taxes. I want to take us to 0% state income tax in 5 years. And I have a plan for that. I actually have 2 plans. But the simplest plan, so we have our state budget is about $41 billion a year. We have 3 different buckets that the budget is categorized into. One of them is what you've probably heard a lot in the press, called the general fund. The general fund is anywhere between $10.5 to $13.5 billion. It's where all the earmarks are, that kind of thing, and where the tax revenue is generated that goes into that bucket. And pre-COVID, we were about, $10.5 billion a year in the general fund, 2019 numbers. And then this past year, we were up to 13.2, 13.5, $13.5 billion between 2019 and this year. What I would like to do is meet the state in the middle about fiscal year 2023, a year and a half ago, where we had revenues in the general fund of $11.6 billion. What I would like to do is draw a red line in the general fund, cap it at $11.6 billion. Every dollar above that revenue line in the state's general fund would get returned to you in the form of a permanent tax cut every single year until we get to zero. That is the simplest plan. I believe it will take us 5 years based on state revenues. Now, let's just say state revenues aren't growing as fast. What else can we do to speed up the clock? Well, we have earmarks. In 2019, the earmarks were about $30 million a year. Last year, they were $700 million. I would like to take, let's just take half, let's just take $350 million. I know it's shocking in such a short period of time, we expand them exponentially. But if we just took half of the earmarks of $350 million and gave that back as part of a permanent return to taxpayers, that would go a long way. And you can leave some of it left over. I would rather earmark the pension for the police officers in our state. About $88 million is missing. Can you imagine $88 million earmark? Like that's the kind, I don't want earmarks for stadiums or sports teams. We want it for those who are serving, like our law enforcement. We want to be able to actually pay them more money too to keep us safe. Same thing for teachers. I can't believe that the average teacher's salary at entry level is not yet permanently $50,000 a year. I also can't believe the state doesn't allow reciprocity. Like if you have a PhD in engineering or nuclear physics or whatever, you can't go teach engineering in high school. I mean, you have to go get the certificate, and I'm vehemently against that. We got to raise the salaries for teachers, but also have people who are way overqualified who just want to retire and give back to their community. So that's my plan on that part. And the other ways we can speed it up too, there are 250 boards and commissions put on by the governor. I don't know why we need that many. I would rather have a bunch of people just tell us what we can do better. And we have coalitions, and Jamie's here tonight building on our coalitions in the red. But we could also, like Trump has done, we could freeze state employee hires. We could offer early retirements for some state employees. We could also ask every state agency to find 2 to 4% to cut every fiscal year until we get to a 0% state income tax. It's the easiest way to do it. You can do it in 5 years. When it comes to infrastructure, another major issue that we have, in the, what they call the bipartisan infrastructure bill, what the media will tell you is that they all bragged about how the state of South Carolina was going to get $6 billion. I gotta tell you, that was never true. We got $1 billion in new money over 5 years in that awful infrastructure package a couple of years ago. That infrastructure package was $1.2 trillion. The roads and bridges, surface transportation, what they called in the budget of that bill, had $110 billion relegated to roads and bridges. Countrywide, not for our state, countrywide, $110 billion. Of the $110 billion in, quote, surface transportation or roads and bridges in that $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill, $70 billion of the $110 billion was going to public transportation, not even to roads and bridges. That left us with $40 billion nationwide put into roads and bridges. Building a bridge in South Carolina, because we're along the coast, is a very expensive prospect. Every bridge that I see that we need costs about $1 billion. It's crazy with inflation how high the prices have been. But we got $1 billion in new money. So my goal as governor is to ensure that we're going after every single dime that we possibly can at the federal level. And we have an enormous track record. I want to bring my grants team to the governor's mansion. We just helped and supported and helped secure the largest infrastructure grant in South Carolina history at $195 million. That has to be done not just in my congressional district. That's got to be done in every congressional district across the state of South Carolina. We have a huge track record of acquiring authorizations, appropriations, funding for stormwater projects, flooding projects, infrastructure projects. What we have not done as a state the last 4 years that we can do better is prepare our shovel-ready projects. We have 4 years with Biden as president, and we don't have enough shovel-ready projects with Trump being elected president and making sure that we get many of those resources and those funds. One of the other things that we have to have as the governor is making sure that we have the best line of communication with the Army Corps of Engineers. You would be shocked at the number of people that call my office because somebody with a paperclip at the Army Corps of Engineers isn't asking or moving on a permit. Counties are losing tens of thousands of dollars a day. Roads aren't getting widened. Bridges aren't being built because of a permit issue. But I gotta tell you, I mean, I might strike the fear of God of people on Twitter, but you wait until they call the Army of Corps of Engineers. When I call, it's serious. And we have a track record of getting these permits expedited, not within days, weeks, and months, within hours. Because they know what I'm capable of doing and making sure people understand what agency is working hard and what agency is not. And that's the kind of thing that I'm going to bring to the governor's office. Because it's a weak governor's seat, as you all know. The legislature controls everything. But we've not had a kind of governor that I will be. I will push us to the limits to make sure that there is a light shined on everything. When it comes to crime, when it comes to safe communities, when it comes to justice, that is another one. We have a system where our lawyer legislators elect the judges. Now, they're never going to give that up. Now, I'm going to be advocating for them to give that up, but that is a powerful position. The problem is we have attorney generals that attorney general runs for office, and guess who pays for the campaign of the AG? Oh, the governor to appoint the AG, or the legislature, however they want to do it, or by a process that's a hybrid between the voters and the governor's office. But the lawyers that the governors have cases against are the ones funding the campaign for the AG. So you can't tell me that's not a natural conflict of interest. Then we have our prosecutors, who are our solicitors, who prosecute the crimes that our sheriff-elect Ryan, that our police, our law enforcement, our sheriffs are all prosecuting. They're doing all this investigation, all this work to arrest the bad guys. And then it gets dropped onto the desk of a solicitor who does not prosecute. And do you know who funds the election campaigns of the solicitors who will not prosecute in our state? It is the attorneys who have cases against the solicitors. You're right, babe. It is all about the money. It is a paid-to-play scheme where everybody gets rich. The attorney makes his money in the fees and the pleas that they plead out, and nobody goes to jail. And the solicitor gets all the campaign cash they need to get reelected another 4 years and not actually do what they say they were going to do. So my job as governor is going to be sure that I shine a light. So I've already had conversations with some of the top leaders in law enforcement across the state of South Carolina. I love the report that SLED does every year where they show you by county all the arrests. But we're going to do a better report. On day one, I want a report from every agency across the state. I'll design it myself. Just give me the spreadsheet. I want to know not just the number of arrests. I want to know the number of indictments, the number of prosecutions. I want to know how many plea deals. I want to know the sentencing averages. I want to know how much time people are spending in jail. And that's the kind of report that the South Carolina people want. It's what you deserve, and you deserve to know what they're actually doing. And more importantly, what they are not doing to keep our streets safe. That's what I will bring to the table. And any solicitor that doesn't want to prosecute crime, I'm going to defund their office. And I already have a line into the DOJ. I'm already talking to the DOJ about different cases that the feds need to come in and shine a light on, because we have victims, whether it's a murder victim, an assault victim, a child, whose civil rights have been violated. And again, I have a great relationship with the president, I have a great relationship with the administration, and I will bring those relationships to the table as governor because I am from South Carolina. I was raised here. I'm raising my family here. I've grown up here. And you are all I care about. I'm now an empty nester with one in college. I am like, this is my mission. I have tunnel vision. And illegal immigration is another one, and I'll wrap up and do questions. But when we had the sanctuary sheriff last year, myself and a handful of electeds from the state house, only a handful, stood up. And it was up to the voters of Charleston County to fire the sanctuary sheriff. In my office as governor, if you're a sanctuary sheriff, you're not getting a dime in the state of South Carolina. I will veto you in the state budget. Not happening, not on my watch. What I also want to do is I'm going to deputize local law enforcement officers to assist ICE, to assist DHS with the deportations of people who are here illegally. You wouldn't know this, and I didn't know this until I did my ride-along earlier this year. We had certain areas of South Carolina, certain streets, where the Sinaloa cartel has taken over, where MS-13 has taken over. And didn't you know Tren de Agua is here? The cartels are here, the gangs are here. And our law enforcement and our DHS and ICE, they all need help. The other thing that we're going to do, and Governor DeSantis has done a very fine job of this in Florida, but if you're a business and you're undercutting labor by hiring illegals, you know what they do in Florida? They automatically fine you $1,000 a day. And I want our local law enforcement to be deputized to go find those businesses who are not hiring South Carolinians, who are hiring illegals to undercut the market and undercut real businesses here in the state of South Carolina, because small businesses are the backbone of our economy. We want to go out and find those businesses, and we're going to charge them $1,000 a day until they hire hardworking South Carolinians. Now on education, I'll wrap up on education. As you know, I'm a high school dropout. My mom is a retired teacher. It is near and dear to my heart. But I have to tell you, having 2 kids coming up in public school in South Carolina, not much has changed since I was in high school in the mid-90s. So, any school choicers in the room? School choice? All about school choice, love school choice. It's going to be decided in court because of our Constitution. We are not able yet to have universal school choice. So I think in the meantime, there are 2 things that we can do until that is fettered out in court. One, Florida does this again, and I love this program. But if a child cannot read and write by 3rd grade in Florida, there's an automatic, mandatory, the kid is held behind. They are held behind from 4th grade. They are also assigned a reading mentor, and they are required to read 90 minutes a day while they're in school. I can think of nothing better. If you can't read 90 minutes at home with a parent, if you do it 90 minutes at school, during recess or whatever, or after school, make that child read for 90 minutes a day. Because if our kids aren't ready by 3rd grade, they're not going to be ready by middle school. If they're not ready by middle school, they will not be ready by high school. And I got to tell you, we have some of the best jobs in the market right here in South Carolina that don't even need a college degree. The second thing, in addition to making sure that we have reading and writing and making that mandatory, I want 2 very distinct pathways for a high school diploma. The traditional one that we have today for the kids who are going on to a 2 or 4-year program. I want a separate but equal path for those kids who will not go to college for whatever reason. If you are certified in a high-skilled trade, a commercial driver's license, welding, electrical, plumbing, and I don't know if you've seen rates for the women working at the salon or hair and makeup, they are making money, cash money. But if you're certified in a skilled trade, you should be able to graduate high school and graduate early and go be a productive member of the South Carolina economy. That is the path to prosperity. That is the path to pulling people out of poverty. That is the path to being the most prosperous, best state we could ever be. If you're a truck driver at the port, your starting salary is $80,000 a year. If you're a certified welder at 18, 17, you're making $80,000 a year. If you are certified in nuclear welding, You are starting out at $110,000 a year. And, you know, I've got a friend whose daughter's getting ready to start Paul Mitchell, do the cosmetology degree. She told me it was going to cost $30,000 to get a degree, to get certified in hair and makeup. $30,000. These are kids who can't afford to go to college. So when we're talking about school choice, I want the scholarship, the lottery scholarship, to pay for these kids to get certified in a job. The lottery scholarship should go towards the kids who are going to get the cosmetology degree, the electrical certification, the plumbing certification. We don't do any of that for these kids who are starting off at a top place. We don't help them. We don't lift them up and give them that opportunity. And we have to do that. But also, in the 20th percentile, we're halfway in the country by state for how much we spend per student. We're spending between $11,000 and $15,000 a year per student. Well, wouldn't you know, if your kid dropped out of high school, went to Paul Mitchell, and had that $15,000 fall into Paul Mitchell, you know how much affordable it would be for that kid to get certified? That's the kind of school choice we need to be talking about. Making sure the vocations and the high school trades have the best opportunity for every kid, no matter the zip code, no matter their color, no matter where they come from. But they're going to get the best qualified skills for the best qualified jobs to make the best qualified income for their families as they work, live, and retire in the best state in the country, and that is the great state of South Carolina. So with that, I want to say thank you. I want to move on. I'm trying to get it down to 30 minutes. I did it in 43. I shaved 2 minutes off of Rainbow Night. Where we have Lisa, can you be the bouncer and do the microphone for us? Lisa's very good at this. If you have a question, please raise your hand, and Lisa will go around for about 15 minutes, and I'll answer your question.
Hey, you talked about increasing the salary for teachers. I do think that's a great idea in theory, but are you open to the idea of maybe introducing programs like what the VA does for military families, where we can incentivize public school teachers to teach within their local community and not just wait to find, the next best teaching job that's closer to them? Because I think that can, ease some of the financial burden.
Well, and I see what you're saying. I think money is a good incentive. I think there are a couple things, like regulation-wise, like if you have a PhD in something, you should be qualified to teach. I know when I retire, I would love to get into a classroom. I love to write, Patty, so I love to write. I'm a prolific writer. Some of my tweets are mine, by the way. Some of them are, some of them aren't. The worst ones are probably mine, and the best. But no, but I think the financially is the best incentive. So every year we have a state budget, and we do this by proviso. So teachers don't really know how much they're going to make every year. And it's done via proviso in the state budget, which is deeply problematic. I want to set the standard, and I think if we can get it to $50,000 a year, people know where they're going to be starting. But also repeal some of the burdensome regulations. Like if you're in the nuclear engineering, I want you teaching nuclear engineering to kids in high school or even middle school. You should be able to do that. But I think there are merit-based incentives that we have to look at. My first goal would be to get the salary up at a bare minimum to get there. We have schools that do not have enough teachers right now, and we have teachers that are leaving the profession because they can't earn a living, and so we need to make sure that's like step number one. But I think merit-based incentives would be a good phase 2 or phase 3 in that kind of program. Dean made us beautiful buttons tonight. Thank you, Dean.
What would you adjust in order to go away from state income tax?
Well, what I would do is I would freeze the general fund account. So when the general fund spending gets $11.6 billion, we cap it. Anything above the $11.6 billion threshold would be returned as a permanent tax cut to constituents, to South Carolinians. You're asking what specific programs or agencies? Well, I mean, we do have a lot of fluff in a lot of the agencies. We have particularly bureaucracy. So if you look at the amount of government employees we have per capita or per 1,000, it's actually much higher than the average state. In comparison to Florida, we have far more state employees per 1,000. We talk a lot about DOGE. So I've worked with Doge in Congress, and I've got a guy that I'm thinking about leading a Doge effort in South Carolina to help identify some of the waste, fraud, and abuse. My particular concern is all agencies across the board and the waste that we have in the bureaucracy, too many government employees doing nothing. The other thing we can look at too is the technology. We spend an inordinate amount of money on all these different databases and technology and software that is so far behind the times. It's one, a cybersecurity issue, cybersecurity threat. We've had data breaches here in South Carolina with our government agencies and many of our private companies. But also it's costing us money. So whether we're talking about law enforcement or counties, municipalities, and towns, I would like to see us streamline our technology resources so that they're shared expenses across the board and statewide, everybody has access to the same system. And I want the systems to talk to one another, and that will also save money. So I think there's a number of ways to go about it, but that's where I would start. That's how I would start with it. And then earmarks too. I mean, the money we spend on sports teams, or stadiums, or museums, things that don't have a government purpose or function, we can also start there as well, and looking at making sure that we don't do that. Earmarks is a place where even the legislature has decided we might have to go to zero to get to 0% state income tax. Okay.
Some of the things that Trump completely canceled. Some of the things that Trump completely canceled. Maybe wondered that you would put back a little bit.
That would put back a little bit? I like everything that he's done. I mean, I like everything that he's done so far. I mean, they're deporting violent and illegal criminals, they're protecting women and girls, education. I love everything that he's doing. I'm going to change a thing right now.
This is my new friend.
Tell us your first name again, I missed it.
First name is Michael, and
Michael.
I'm thankful to be here, and I like a lot of what you were saying with school education, incorporating trades and all that, and getting rid of the property tax and income tax. I'll be honest, when I first came, I was like skeptical, because like, I think we have a really bad governor right now, McMaster. He threw us into lockdown. He violated our First Amendment rights during the shutdown, so that, like, for me was like a big thing. It's like medical freedom and First Amendment rights. And I do have to say, I'm leaning more towards you. I came in undecided, and now I'm leaning a little bit more towards you. I guess my thing is like, what are you going to do to protect us as far as medical freedom goes, and then vaccines? Because I know a lot of schools require you to vaccinate your kids when you go to school, and yeah, that is all. Oh, and Second Amendment rights, like red flag laws.
Yeah, I'm against red flag laws. I own 7 firearms myself. I'm a good shot. I go to the range with you sometime. I do love to shoot. On vaccines, we do have religious exemptions in the state of South Carolina, but we don't have our medical exemptions. So that is something that I think we as a state should look at. And I will tell you, during COVID, I got the shot, and I regret it. And it wasn't the first shot that did me in. It was the second one. I thought I was doing my great community service for the elderly community. I'm going to get my shot. I'll prevent myself from getting COVID again. When you know what happened, I got COVID again. But also, I got vaccine injured. So I was vaccinated. When was this? 2020. When were the vaccinations? So I got the Moderna. And the second shot, I mean, it was awful. But about 2 weeks after that, I started to get tremors in my right hand. I still have those today. I get chest pains every week, and now I have asthma and throat constrictions that I did not have before. And this all started on the second shot. And I have met so many people that I have chronic fatigue. You wouldn't believe I do get chronic fatigue. And so I get wiped out sometimes. And I can't go to the gym or even exercise anymore. I can't run, I can't bike. I used to cycle. I can walk at a slow pace. That's my exercise. So when I'm at the Capitol or at the office, I walk a lot because I get asthmatic, and I just can't. It's very, very difficult for me, and I regret it. So I've told my story on the campaign trail over and over again. I praise God that I didn't get my kids vaccinated, and I would never want to require that on our kids. But even now, my kids are older and out of the house, but the vaccination requirements today versus 20 years ago when my kids were born are significantly different. I used to be able to just have my kids do 1 or 2 shots. That's what I did. I would pace myself. I would do 1 or 2 shots at a time every 6 months. We were behind a little bit, but it wasn't really, schools were like, just catch up at some point this year and you'll be fine. And that worked for us for a long time, but one of my kids at 18 months got a polio vaccination. And that child was like blinking excessively, like 100 times a minute. And it went on for like 2 or 3 weeks, and it freaked me out. It was like, I guess, a central nervous system. Maybe some doctor can tell us. But to see myself get vaccinated and see my kid that way, I have a very different perspective now on this. And I don't want fluoride in the water. I don't want chemtrails. These are things that other states are doing. Florida and Tennessee are getting rid of these things, and these are things that I will do as governor. So there's so much that I want to do on this. We need to follow MAHA instead of following MAGA. And make us, healthy again, and there are things we can do at the state level and bring that on down. But medical exemptions need to happen. They don't exist yet in the state of South Carolina. Yes, ma'am. Is it Laura? Amanda. Amanda was Amanda. I'm getting there.
No, I appreciate you trying. I was going to ask a medical freedom question, so I appreciate that. But I have a concern about centralization of power at the federal level. So you were talking about how we were going to cut the state income tax. If we do that, will we not end up eventually, even though you have all these good ideas about reducing our federal spending and all that stuff from the state, are we not concerned about the possibility that we'll depend more upon the federal government? And when that happens, there are usually strings attached. Sort of like the COVID relief funds that were tied to medical apartheid in our hospital systems and other places, where we were like testing those who had not been vaccinated and not testing those who had. So like those kinds of little strings are the only thing I'm concerned about with that situation. So how would you address that?
Well, I share your concern, number one, but if we do nothing now, we absolutely will be, I think, relying on the federal government. We are not competitive with other states around us. So North Carolina's state income tax is about 4.5% and dropping. Georgia is around the same as well. Tennessee's already 0. Florida is 0. We have companies that are looking to move to South Carolina, companies that want to invest hundreds of millions of dollars into our state, but our state income tax is very high. We're the highest in the Southeast. And we actually compare, when you look at our taxes, that coupled with the sales tax, we have a 6% statewide sales tax that is equal to many blue states in the Northeast. So we have to do something to be more competitive, and reducing the state income tax down to 0 gets us there. And we're seeing states that get to 0 flourish far bigger, better, and faster than we are. We are lagging behind in every single measure. We have very high crime. We have we've got infrastructure, energy issues right now. We are behind on infrastructure, roads and bridges, and the cost of them. The cost of living is skyrocketing, and part of the beauty of being the 10th fastest growing state in the country is the revenue growth that we're having. But if we don't reduce the taxes, we will fall further behind. And look what happened with the port recently. Savannah's eating our lunch, and we're competing every day with Georgia. And we're there are so many more things we can do to be better and more competitive, and reducing that state income tax is a barrier to that right now. And that's what you get when you talk to businesses outside the state that want to invest in South Carolina. Thank you for your question. You guys are being shy. I don't bite. Oh, there's one back here. We'll do 2 more, and then Connor wants to ask a question. Sweet Connor. Oh, Natalie. Okay.
Well, my daughter sent me a question. She
Okay.
wanted me to ask you this. She said, you're 100% pro-life. So, and Susan B. Anthony pro-life gave you a D on the scorecard. Was it because you supported 15 to 20 week abortions?
So Susan B. Anthony is, can't give me a bad grade because I'm pro-birth control. So, is my understanding. I am pro-life. I share the same pro-life position as Donald Trump. As a survivor, I will support exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. And I voted for a 6-week ban in South Carolina with those exceptions when I was in the state legislature, which is, I think, very similar to what we have on the books now. But my pro-life position is exactly identical to Donald Trump's. The one thing I want to say on this issue, too, is I want to give big praise to Henry McMaster. So a couple of years ago, and it's still the case today, we have 14 counties across the entire state of South Carolina that don't have a single OBGYN doctor. So Senator Tom Davis out of Beaufort County had a bill that Henry signed into law. And that was to allow, talking about medical freedom, Amanda, that was to allow pharmacists to prescribe birth control at the pharmacy so you wouldn't have to go to the doctor. And I think there are things we can do in the state legislature now, whether we're talking about nurses, whether we're talking about healthcare, different kinds of healthcare, the pharmacy, what nurses are trained for, physicians assistants. There are things we can do to increase competition and increase access across the board, rural or metropolitan, all across South Carolina. But that's the thing that Henry McMaster did. It was tremendous. It did great for rural areas in South Carolina, and a conservative did that. They don't like me because I talk about birth control. It is what it is. But my record speaks for itself. All right, we're going to do Carlton, you're the last question. And then what I want to do is when we do photos, I'm going to stand in front of the podium, and then my team will take your cell phone. I would ask that you all would line up over this way. We'll come this way, so when you exit out, the door is that way. So if you just do a nice pretty line after Carlton asks his question, and then we'll do photos, and I want to say I love you and God bless you before anything. Oh, Connor. Okay, Connor, then Carlton. All right. Carlton, then Connor, sorry.
So, I've known Nancy for about 12 years, so I got to know her before she was in political office, but this is a lighthearted question than a serious one. I used to work for the Republican Party of Wisconsin, and so winter goes a little bit long up there. Do you remember knocking doors for Donald Trump in the snow in
a
April?
blizzard.
Yes.
In a blizzard in the Wisconsin primary in 2016, we knocked doors in Wisconsin, in Appleton, Wisconsin. I didn't have snow boots, I had rain boots. And I was freezing, and we went to Walmart to get Long Johns, and it wasn't enough. It was awful. I didn't have snow boots, but I remember those days marching through the snow. That's a great memory. Thank you for bringing that up.
Absolutely. So the serious question, on October the 3rd, 2023, you were one of a group of members of Congress who voted to move Kevin McCarthy because he had broken his word on a number of fiscal promises to members of the Freedom Caucus and the Republican Caucus. How did that experience affect you, and how would that inform how you were willing to take on the powers that be in Columbia if you're willing to take on the powers that be in the Republican leadership in Washington, D.C.?
Well, I always say doing the right thing is the hard thing. And for me, it isn't that hard to take on powerful people, because if you tell the truth and you expose it, and look, he's still coming after me. I just don't care. But we have a better speaker now than we've ever had. Mike Johnson is Donald Trump's pick. Mike Johnson is one of those most honest people we could ever have. And you know that when you talk to Mike Johnson, when you shake his hand, when you do a deal, and he says, I'm with you, I'll be with you till the end, he is with you to the end. The guy is a Boy Scout. He's better than that. He's an Eagle Scout. And he is a tremendously God-fearing man. He's a Christian. And he has just been a breath of fresh air at the Capitol, in the U.S. Congress. And I told this story earlier, so many stories. But when Mike Johnson got stalled as Speaker for the vote in January, 2 holdouts, one from South Carolina and then one from Texas, I called the president on this phone. It's broken. It's so broken. But I called the president, and he was in the middle of his golf game. He's like, I'm golfing. And I said, we got 2 holdouts. And if we don't get this done on the first ballot, Mr. President, you're not going to get your speaker. And I got Mike into a room with the 2 holdouts, and Trump was on my phone. I watched Trump just beautifully work the room and get a deal done. And within an hour, Mike Johnson was elected speaker. I'm willing to lay down my life if it means doing the right thing. I believe in risking my own career to tell the truth. Last week, I showed up in court at a bond hearing for a woman who'd been beaten and it was domestic violence, and she tried for years to get justice. All of a sudden, about 2 weeks ago, a tape surfaced, and the truth came out. And I showed up to court, and everybody heard her story. That guy's now sitting in jail without bail, as he should be. And so, you know, I agree, not everybody likes what I say, not everybody likes how I say it, but I have to tell you, it is extremely effective. And I've had a lot of success in every way, and I'm ready for this job, and I cannot wait to do what is needed in our state and make us bigger and better and more productive than ever before. Connor, you get to wrap this up, babe. We gotta get you home and into bed, it's late.
What is your favorite part about...
What is it?
What's your favorite thing about Donald Trump?
What's my favorite thing about Donald Trump? Well, he answers the phone when I call. So, when we had our poll come out about a week ago, I texted it to him, Connor. I sent him a text, and then a couple hours later, he put on Truth Social that we were leading the governor's race by double digits. So it's nice to be able to talk to him from time to time. He's a busy guy, but it's nice when you call and he picks up. Thank you for your questions. I appreciate all of you being here tonight. God bless you. I love you, and I can't wait to see you again.
just needs to take over.